Old school versus new school. What would you pick? When it comes to me, I always go back to the old school, but I'm always curious about the new school. So, first of all, Brian from MBK Reptiles here, and I want to give, before we get onto this awesome video, a little shout out to our fellow Canadian breeder, Matt Pistone, because Antoine brought back an amazing looking snake for me for our collection. So we're talking about a Hypopide Pastel Enchi OD. So that's definitely not how you would say it, Antoine.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
But Pastel Enchi OD Hypopide. I mean, just a incredible, clean looking animal that we basically added to our collection. Beautiful male to add to some awesome females in the near future, in a year or so. So what I want to talk to you guys about today is all about, like, I've been thinking about it, and every week that I go through this, that I'm living through this whole business and my lifestyle, I'm always questioning everything that we do. If we're doing it right, how can we be better? And so many, like, I always try to innovate, but at the same time, I always try to make sure that I don't forget where we actually come from. So we go back to the old school, to all those different basics studies that we have that sometimes I feel that some newer breeders just forget. Because when you're looking at this here, most people see a regular ball python. But what I see importation from Africa of thousands and thousands of ball pythons, where people are just handpicking any little thing that they can maybe possibly do extra, maybe some new mutations to be able to come up, you know? So it's super interesting from that point on. Then that's what it is, but also just the regular ball pythons that were just being sold everywhere in pet store. Now you walk into a pet store and you're starting to see morphs. So like regular ball pythons are basically nothing anymore. Where for me, I also remember back early 2000, we would buy a regular het albino female for over $1,000. So when you're thinking about a het albino for $1,000, it's completely insane to know where we have basically become today. So just gonna put those up away, at least this little guy, and maybe handle this one. Why not? Because we can do a video with the snakes. It'll give something nice for people to look at instead of just my face.
I'm enjoying just your face.
My baldness, and that's how it is. So guys, so I remember back in the days, probably around when I first started coming full time. Like, I mean, I've been raised. My father was breeding all these animals at our home when we were born, and we've been raised with breeding reptiles all our life. But I came into our breeding facility back, like, I started probably around 2004 is like when I really started full time to start breeding animals. Now, back in those days, we would go to different shows in the US, mainly at that time, the Daytona Reptile Breeders Expo was the NRB, was the biggest show where everybody would go. We would meet people like Brian Barczyk, that was a pioneer back in the days, always still is, always will be, Mark and Kim Bell. And one of my favorite idols as I was growing up, like, there was Bill Love, and then also Bob and Tracy Barker. So for whoever is unfamiliar with them, is VIP is basically
VIP?
VPI, sorry about that. It's been a rough week.
They're guys. The VIP of VPI.
They are definitely the VIP, but yeah, VPI, they're the pioneers. So when I used to fall around with them, it was basically the beginning of all the technology, like upgrades that were being made. Like, you could see like thermostats and better heating. Ultrasound started being used, because back in the days there was no ultrasound. We would feel all these animals by hand. Now they would tell me, you know, like, we have insulation around our room and we heat our own room. We don't even heat the racks, we don't heat nothing. And you'd be like, wow, that's completely, like, it's impressive to be able to do so. But what does that do? If you heat the room, then you don't need to worry about like their habitat. You make sure that you control the temperature, you make sure you control the humidity, and then everything works out perfectly. Now, from that point on, you know, it's even if you do, hey, Crystal, what's going on now? You're gonna be part of our video now. Say hello. You don't have any, you're practicing your English, come on. So Crystal, we're getting him, he's mainly French, but we're trying to get him to practice his English. So make sure you go see him, because he is gonna be at the Toronto Expo on January 22nd. So make sure you go visit him, get the English speaking, you know, with him, because he definitely needs to get better at that, but he is doing a pretty great job, right?
He's passionate, man.
He's definitely passionate. So one of our guys here that takes care of cleaning and maintaining our ball python collection and our rodents and a lot more. So back to basics. So guys, so from that point on, they were telling me that, okay, you know what, like we would just take care of the temperature and the humidity of the room, and then from that point on, our animals would do great. Now, back in the days, we would think, you know, like even now, like you think like a female ball python could breed like starting around, on average, probably around 2.5 to 3.5 years old. So maybe around 3 years old is your normal time where a female ball python will breed. Well, for them, they would breed probably around 5 years old, which is completely insane. But you can imagine that heating under the belly with cables helps the digestive system and helps animals grow faster. So they took the passionate, hobbyist, we could say like biology approach, which was really, really amazing. They had such an understanding of each and individual animal, and you just understood where, like, they're so close to their animals. I feel that nowadays a lot of the breeders are not actually in love with the actual animal, but they might even be more in love with the actual name tag. Because when you're looking at some crazy cinnamon, fire, calico, super pastel, special, all these different crazy names that you give, like, I mean, people dream of potential, and people just loved all the combinations and everything. But we have to go back to the basics. So I want to make sure to everyone to never forget that from that point on. Now, technology is great. You can't, like, it has made our lives so much easier. But sometimes try to understand where the technology is and what does it give to you. So for example, if you're ultrasounding your snakes, or people that have ultrasounds, and if you don't have an ultrasound, well, you know what? People have been doing that and have been feeling follicles on their snake for dozens and dozens of years, generations, you know, so don't give up. You can still do it. We can all still do it. But when you have the ultrasound and you're actually looking at the amount of centimeters that every follicle is, feel your snakes, palp your snakes to be able to see if you can associate what you're seeing on the screen to the actual feeling that you have. There's nothing more important than to be able to be close and be in close contact and understanding all of your animals that you have. So that's definitely my little message that I have for you guys. Now, we're gonna get a bit into the ball pythons today, where I'm talking about the ultrasound. Now, we only use ultrasounds for our ball pythons. We've tried to use them with boas, we tried to use them with carpet pythons, but I never really liked what it's given to me. The ultrasound is definitely one of the main technology that we use here at NBK Reptiles that I actually did not use back in the day. Back in the day, we would just, if I just put the snake back, we would just put the snake back into its cage, let it walk in, just put my thumb right underneath the belly, and then start feeling, if I can start feeling some little pebbles. So actually right here, I can feel a few little pebbles now, or a big shit. That's actually what you can feel. So there's so many different things and techniques that you can do, and you don't really hurt your animal. You don't need to be afraid of really hurting the animal. You let the animal slither into its bin. You just put your thumb right up, and you will feel them. So you will feel the organs and where it is and the little pebbles. when you're looking at your ultrasound, then you can actually associate your actual feeling and to what the image is on the screen. Now, the other thing that we actually did that we've changed over the years and the years are our thermostats. So yes, when I first heard that VPI wouldn't have any thermostats and wouldn't put any heat on all their animals, for me, even as a kid I was like back then, it was very surprising. I've always, like, as far as I know, I've always worked with heat cables and heat pads and whatnot. So we used to have the old school Zoomed thermostats, which had like the analog that you have to switch. Now, there was no digital thermometer associated with it. So we'd go to the garden store, we'd buy like a thermometer, and then we put the probes together where they needed to be and try to associate them together. But I mean, it was a weekly effort of adjusting. Nothing was perfect, you know, so we would adjust the analog and change the temperature, and there was always a fluctuation. If we would be able to have night drops, no, we couldn't. But the idea of the night drop is really what got me into our first thermostat that we got. So we got the VE electronics, but then they were great. But again, there's some more fuses. There's so many other things that the digital world failed where it wasn't before. But for us, it was, you know what, let me upgrade my thermostat. But it's like, oh, well, I won't need to worry about them anymore. But you actually did need to keep looking at them. So even if you have thermostats, you can't forget about the fact that you have to look at them all the time. Make sure that they are working. Make sure that nothing is unplugged. You've got to make sure all the time that everything is working. And then we're actually upgrading even more to herpstat. So we have some herpstats now. So like we're really trying to follow the trends, because it's actually a good trend. Technology is super important. And nowadays, the younger you are, the better you adapt yourself to new technology, which sometimes the old school people have a hard time adapting to it. I mean, every time I would tell my dad, you know what, I think you're due for a new computer. We can imagine, I'm sure all your parents out there, every time you go up for a change, a new TV, a new computer, a new phone, a new watch, all hell breaks loose. But nowadays, it's like we're actually like we're like excited for that change. So I would say don't get impulsive. Do your research, do it up. It helps, but don't forget about that close contact with your animals. Feel your animals, look at them, love them, be passionate about the hobby. Because when all hell breaks loose, because in this world, all hell does break loose, and it breaks loose quite often. Things happen. You need to go back to that source of your heart, basically, that just says, you know what, I can't live without those animals. You can live without a tag, but you can't live without those animals. So it's super important. So I hope you guys like these little, I would say, how could I say that? I would say
inputs.
Yeah, input or share of wisdom and knowledge that we can have. I love to share my passion. It's tattooed on me. That's how it is. I mean, that's where it's got to be. But I want people to always go back to those roots, to their passion, to what they love about working and being hands-on with your animals. And apart from that, can't wait to show you guys some more. I mean, I have some amazing stories that I want to be able to showcase to you guys from how our facility, Antoine had the great idea of basically showcasing like how we built our facility. Like our facility that we're in right now first got built for us back early 2000, so in 2000. And where we are today, we're still here. There's a lot of things I would change. There's a lot of things that has changed, but there's reasons on how we've grown and how we do certain things. So we're definitely going to be interested in showcasing that to you guys. And until then, to the next time, to the next video, and no stress. Until next time, regular ball pythons for the win.